Oh, hey dude.
Oh, hey man, what's up?
So I got a draft deck and I got this question. How many lands do you think I should play?
17. It's always 17.
Yeah, I know, but these cards are pretty cheap to play, so.
No, it's 17. Really. 17.
And, there's only two colors, so.
I know, but despite all that, it's still 17.
Yeah, okay, fine. I'll just do that.
I mean, 13 lands, that's 1/3 of the deck. I just have to be slightly lucky. Screw it, I just want to play all those spells. They're way too good. Shit. Oh, come on. Come on, what is this? Hello there, YouTube and YouTubers! Today we're coming at you with a video about why we're always playing 17 lands in Draft and other limited formats. Why this video? Well, that's because it often feels like we're straight up being land text while we're playing limited. Anyway, the topics we're going to discuss here is the colors of your deck, the mana curve of your deck, and mana sinks. So what we brought here for you today is mana cost of an aggro deck I recently built. As you can see, there's quite a few 2-mana cards in this deck, and we've got a sort of descending stairwell going all the way from 2 all the way down to 6 mana cost or more. It's very regular in your draft decks, in your aggro decks, that the most played converted mana cost is 2, and you will find that the more aggro you will go, the closer to 2 your other cards will be. So that means that their 1 and 3 mana cost cards will be more than your 4, 5 or 6 mana cost. As you can see, we didn't draft all that well in this deck, though because we of course have Foretell in this set, this chart might be a bit skewed in Kaldheim. My advice would be, if you're playing in an aggro deck, play as many 2 mana cost cards as you can, but that's beside the point. What's more important is that the mana cost of cards in your deck will very much dictate how many lands you will need. Even in this aggro deck where we got so many 2 mana cost cards, and well, let's be honest, we do have quite a few 4, 5 and 6 mana cost cards. After we did a quick count, we see that we have 9 cards which cost 4 or more mana. So that's the reason why in this aggro deck we still decided to play 17 lands. The advantage of playing enough lands in your deck is that you will more often be able to cast your cards on the turn where you would normally expect them. So turn 4, you will be able to cast a 4 mana cost card more often if you're playing 17 or close to it lands, which means that your cards will be as strong as they should be. If you're only able to cast a 4 mana cost card on turn 6, your 4-drop by that time will look quite weak. And that's of course very logical, but because in a way, your card has costed 2 more mana than it should have. Another reason why you should be playing 17 lands in your deck is because otherwise you will very easily get in trouble with colors. If you don't play 17 lands, or if you play quite a few less than them, there's a good chance that you will only have 1 of your 2 colors, or maybe 2 of your 3 if you're splashing something. And that just means that some of the cards in your hand will not be allowed to be played, or only later on in the game, where you get the same problem we talked about earlier. Your 4-drop in the color you didn't have at the time will look quite weak on turn 6 or later. How do you determine how many of a certain color you should play in your deck? Well, there is an example here. We've got 15 white cards and 9 black cards. I would say that if 1/3 of your spells or more are in a certain color, you will probably need, well, let's say about 7, 8 or 9 of that color to be able to cast them somewhat reliably. It's also of course influenced by how many cards you play of that color, which ask of you to have 2 of the certain land in the deck. For instance, we've got 9 cards in this deck which are black, but still some of those 9 cards are double black to cast. That's why we're playing 8 black lands in this deck, and if we had the option we would have definitely played more. But because we're playing 15 white cards, we're playing 9 white, which is of course more than 8. And there again, if we would have had the option, we would have played more white lands even still. We would have liked to play 10 or maybe even 11 white sources. But because of what draft went, we didn't have the option. Luckily, this example of a draft deck doesn't have that many cards that require double white, because otherwise we would have to expect that in some of our games we're going to have trouble with our white mana. So once again, if you're drafting a deck and you have 1/3 of your spells being in a certain color or more, you're going to need 7, 8, 9 or more lands of that color in your deck. The higher the number goes in percentage, the more of your lands should be in that color. My advice would be that even sometimes if you're playing, say, a 2 or 3 color deck, it could be a wise option to go more heavily into one color than the other ones. Why? Well, then it's more justifiable to play many lands of that color in your deck. Say you're playing a 3 color deck, I would advise you to have a main color, say white for instance, just like in this deck, a secondary color, say black, and then a tertiary color, say red. Try to make it so that most of the cards in the deck are white, that a few less are black, and the red, which is your third tertiary color, is very few cards. If you do this, you can make sure that your primary color has 8 or 9 sources, your secondary color has 7 or 8, and your tertiary color has maybe only 3 or 4 sources of that color. If you skew away from this many fewer, very little color distribution in your spells, you will see that it's also going to be very hard to build the deck in the sense of having the right color combinations to be able to cast your cards on the turn they should be played. Another reason to be playing 17 lands in your deck is because many of the cards don't only ask you to cast them once and then never spend mana on them again. You're looking at many creatures which have an activated ability. For instance, every card with Boast has an activated ability that asks you to spend some mana. But also some of the non-Boast cards in the set will have an activated ability which requires you to have mana. Every equipment has an equip cost, and if you never re-equip equipments, they're going to be quite weak. It has been taken into account in the power of an equipment that it should be equipped to creatures more than once. And that's also a good reason to be playing 17 lands. Cards at higher rarity, for instance the Swallow we've got over there, which is an uncommon, but also many of the rares and other uncommons, will even more often than commons have activated abilities or other ways to sink mana into them. In conclusion, because of mana sinks, the colors of our deck, and the mana cost of our cards, there's a good reason to be always playing 17 or more lands. And that's also why we so often feel like we're being land taxed by our decks. This should also lead you to the following conclusion. If I'm not playing mana sinks, I don't have multiple colors in my deck, and the mana cost of my cards is very low, say all of them are 1, 2 or 3, with a very few exceptions being 4. The colors of my deck are maybe 1, maybe 2, and I have no or very few mana sinks in my deck. In that situation, yes, in that situation, we're finally allowed to go down in the amount of lands in our deck. Victory! But all in all, I don't think you should be surprised if, from your last 8 draft decks, it would have been wise if all of them would have had 17 lands in it. Good luck with your drafting, good luck with your deck building. Make sure that you put enough lands in your deck, because otherwise I'm going to melt my brain. And I'll see you next time with another video about Magic the Gathering. I hope you liked the video. If you did, please leave a like. And if you want to see more videos about Magic the Gathering, sometimes for beginners and sometimes for more experienced players, then please subscribe to the channel. You'll find videos about top 5 commons from each color in Kaldheim, and also some other videos. Anyway, see you around.